What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today we're having a look at a Game Week 10 preview. We're going to cover things like top transfer targets, 6 of them, captaincy, your questions answered, and a wildcard for anyone playing it this week. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. FPL Harry here. Thank you all for joining me. Just before we start, I want to talk to you about a very quick site that I use. I know I only talk to you guys about FPL sites and FPL promotions that I actually think are really going to benefit you, and this one is called FPLTIPS.com. You get a weekly email 24 hours before the deadline every single game week that sums up everything that you need to know that week. I'm a subscriber, and so are 15,000 other people getting these tips and tricks to make better decisions before every single game week. It takes about 3 seconds to sign up. Go and click the link at the top of the description. Thank me later, but let's dive into my top transfer targets. So the first one we're going to talk about is actually Daka of Leicester. Looking for a cheap forward. This guy could be the one that we go to, coming in at just 5.7 million. All of those like me who went and bought Dominic Solanke this week could be looking for an alternative already. He came off the bench in Game Week 9 and got a goal in that good Leicester 4-0 win. Those of us with James Maddison, with Danny Ward, Harvey Barnes even, we finally got some points to our names. Maddison's been doing well, but the others finally came out trumps. Daka did pick up a bit of an illness over the international break, so he wasn't fit to start, but I can't say that Jamie Vardy really set the world light, and given it's been Daka that's been starting the most recent few games, I do think that going into Game Week 10 and onwards, that rice run of fixtures that they do have, I think Daka could be a really, really nice option. Their nice run of fixtures does continue. Bournemouth away this week, followed by Crystal Palace and Leeds at home over the next 2, meaning if you do need a cheap forward, I probably would be going for Daka now over going for Dominic Solanke. A lot of us trying to find enablers to afford the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, even Harry Kane in our fantasy teams. Less so Mo Salah at the moment, but we are looking for that cheap enabler, and I do think Daka, along with James Maddison, could be the person to go and buy. Now, he's predicted to score 14 points over the next 6 game weeks. That's not that high, but again, there is a little bit of concern when you look at the models compared to how many minutes he's exactly going to go and get this season. He has performed well with 2 goals and 1 assist so far this season and has averaged 6 points per start. So when he is getting starts, he is scoring points, and I think Brendan Rodgers will favour him over the next couple of games as well. So a cheap forward who is looking like a big differential as well that you can go and have as a bit of an enabler in your FPL squad. Next up, we go to a cheap defender, 4.3 million, Guehi of Crystal Palace. The go-to Crystal Palace defender, the go-to cheap defender in all of our teams at the moment. 4.3 million and just 1.8% owned. If you are looking for a defender replacement that is probably sub 5.5 million, this is the guy that I think you should go and get. Those Crystal Palace fixtures on the horizon are absolutely fantastic. Now, they've had their difficult run. They had their Chelsea fixture in Game Week 9 where they did actually perform pretty well. However, Anderson, Guehi's centre-back partner, was out injured. So Crystal Palace didn't necessarily perform as well defensively, but he does look like he's going to be back for Game Week 10. Leeds at home, Leicester, then Wolves in Game Week 12. Now, this is the key one. This is the week where we do have the blank game week for Arsenal and Manchester City. So some of you may be struggling to put out all of those 11 starting players. So having a strong team in Game Week 12 is really important, and Guehi having Wolves at home that week is an absolutely fantastic bench option. So you can put the likes of Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, Cancelo, Martinelli on your bench like I'm going to have to, and then you can just start Guehi in what is a fantastic fixture. Crystal Palace's underlying defensive numbers are not as amazing as maybe some of the other teams, but that is because they've played 4 of the big 6 already so far this season. I think their numbers will improve. Gaeta as well in goal, a good option, but Guehi definitely one that I'll be looking at. Predicted to score 18 points over the next 6, and given his price, that's actually a pretty reasonable expectation, and I hope that a lot of those can come in Game Week 12. Again, no attacking returns, started the majority of games so far this season for Crystal Palace, has looked really good, but had a couple of price drops, meaning I think he's a great cheap enabler if you're looking for those expensive premiums in your team. Next up, we have Wilfried Zaha. So everyone looking at James Maddison after his haul in Game Week 9. I think Maddison is an absolutely fantastic option. I just couldn't quite fit him into this video. And given that the majority of you probably already own him, I decided not to include him. But if you don't own Maddison, he's also a fantastic player to go out and buy. But another one is Wilfried Zaha. Again, the Palace fixtures have been hit and miss, but Zaha has been able to get those FPL returns that we've all been hoping for and wanting from him. 6 starts so far this season and 4 goals to show for it, 5.5 points per start. Interestingly, the Daka actually averages more points per start than Zaha does this season, but Zaha's numbers are really impressive. He's nailed, he's the talisman, and he's on penalties as well. As a result, predicted to score a massive 27 points over the next 6 game weeks. Only 4 players are predicted to score more points than him between now and that time, and one of them is Erling Haaland and one of them is Kevin De Bruyne as well. So a massive predicted points for Wilfried Zaha over this run. Again, you can see why. Those fixtures are fantastic. Leeds at home, Leicester away in the next 2 teams are notoriously conceding a lot of goals at the moment. Then Wolves, then Everton, then Southampton in their next 5. It's probably the best fixture run that you could possibly ask for. Him and Maddison are essentials in your team, I think. Look to be getting both Zaha and Maddison into your teams ahead of game week 10, ahead of game week 11, but I think they're going to start producing a lot of points, and they're cheaper than a lot of the other options that we're looking at in midfield, up to the likes of 8 million, likes of Phil Foden, in the likes of Saka, and in the likes of Luis Diaz as well. So he is a cheap and affordable price of just 7.3 million. He's risen a couple of times, and I think he will continue to do so with some returns over the next couple of games. Moving back into defence, probably the defender, my number one defender that I would be buying. If you're looking for a defender to buy, for me, it is Reece James at the moment. Again, only 6 million. He had a couple of price rises early on, but has fallen back down to 6 million. Again, his ownership is quite high at sort of 17%, but I think that's only going to skyrocket. And actually, it's still under 20% owned. He can be a bit of a differential for us, while everyone still has the likes of Trent, who is not performing well at the moment, despite a goal in the Champions League last night. Predicted also to score 27 points, like Wilfried Zaha, matched in the top 5 for predicted points over the next few game weeks, and actually ranked in the top 4 value. Again, the likes of Zaha is more expensive, but Reece James coming in at 6 million could be a fantastic option. 1 goal and 1 assist so far from 6 starts so far this season. Again, I think his returns are only going to go and get better under this new Graham Potter system. For anyone who hasn't watched Chelsea yet, Reece James and Raheem Sterling on the 2 sort of left wing, right wing back type positions are playing so advanced. They're playing sort of left wing, right wing. Reece James at 6 million as a defender playing in that position for Chelsea is crazy given the upcoming fixtures that they do have. I think the returns that he's going to get and some of the other Chelsea assets have the ability to get is really, really good, but it's just that Reece James has the ability to combine that attacking threat with the clean sheet potential that I think they're going to have. Even though the clean sheets haven't been there, I do think the upcoming fixtures do allow them to get it. Wolves at home, Villa away, Brentford away, all in the next 3, followed by Manchester United and then Brighton in the next 5. I just think the returns that Reece James can get over this run are really good. The explosive nature of how he plays, again, is really, really positive. I don't see many other people being able to fit the position that he's playing at the moment as well, so I don't necessarily think the rotation for Reece James is that high. So again, at 6 million, the number one defender that I would be buying. Next, we go back up front to a bit of a different option. So we had Daka earlier as a cheap alternative. If you haven't already, please make sure to like the video. We are going to aim for 1,000 likes on this video. If we can hit it, that would be absolutely fantastic. But Callum Wilson. Now, Isaac is out. He could be back as soon as game week 10. Probably unlikely, but even game week 11. But I don't see that impacting Wilson's minutes. Wilson has been really, really solid so far this season when he has started. 3 goals in his 4 starts so far this season. Has averaged 5 points per start. Again, coming in at just over 7 million. That sort of mid-price forward that we're looking at, with the likes of Tony maybe not performing as well with the injury to Mitrovic, with the injury to Isaac. I think Callum Wilson could be a really nice option. Predicted to score 18 points over the next 6. Again, just because there's always minutes concerns for Callum Wilson and injury concerns for him as well, which does bring down his predicted points. However, when he does start for Newcastle, it looks like he scores goals in practically every single game that he's going to play in. Again, we saw it in game week 9. He was so vocal. Again, he only got 1 goal, but the amount of how involved he was, he's on penalties as well. When Isaac plays, there might be a bit of controversy about exactly who's going to take penalties, but I do predict that it is going to be Callum Wilson. Again, 7.2 million with Brentford at home, Everton at home, Aston Villa at home, and Southampton all in their next 6. Plus, Manchester United away and Tottenham away as well. 2 fixtures against teams who have actually been conceding goals over the past few weeks as well. So even those couple, I still think Wilson is able to go and get something in them. So it's a nice run of fixtures. Wilson is scoring goals. He is on penalties as well. He's back to full fitness. I think he is a top option. One that I'm looking at as well, depending on how long Mitrovic is going to be out for. If I have to sell Mitrovic, Callum Wilson will be coming into my team. And then finally, we move back into defence, into quite a controversial figure in Perisic of Tottenham. He's coming in at 5.6 million and is currently 25% owned. A lot of teams who owned him at the start of the season, though, dead teams, so actually his active ownership is quite low. He's predicted to score almost 22 points over the next few weeks. Again, ranked really highly for his value rating, although his predicted points might not be as high as some of the other people in his list, given the price he's coming in at is very high up there. Again, has 3 assists so far this season. Quite how he hasn't scored a goal from one of his corners or from open play, I don't quite know, but I think those returns are coming. Again, started 5 games so far this season, so a little bit of rotation, but with Emerson Royale out suspended at the moment for Tottenham, it does look like Perisic and Sessegnon are going to be starting the majority of games, especially given the comments that Conte made about both Doherty and Jed Spence. Basically, he doesn't want to play them because he thinks he will lose if he does play them, which doesn't bode well for them getting any starts or any minutes at all. So Perisic and Sessegnon look pretty nailed at the moment, which is not what we've been able to say about the pair of them at the moment. Brighton away, Everton at home in the next 2 as well. Then Manchester United away in the blank in game week 12 is okay. The next 2 fixtures are definitely nice that you could go and look to go and get Ivan Perisic into. Then Newcastle at home and Bournemouth at home as well. So actually the next 5 fixtures for me is definitely a window of opportunity that we can go and potentially look at some of these Spurs players. And Perisic is a cheaper route into the Spurs team. You can't afford Son, you maybe can't afford Kane. Kulusevski versus Richarlison is a bit of a nightmare. So Perisic at 5.6 million could be a cheap way into that Spurs attack. And again, I've got Trent in my team. I've actually got Cancelo in my team. Both players who have blanks coming up or are not on form. And Perisic and Reece James are the 2 that I'm closely eyeing up as transfers into my team. So those are top transfer targets. Again, if you haven't liked the video, we're aiming for 1,000 likes on the video. We're going to talk very, very quickly about captaincy ranking. For me, honestly, it's Captain Haaland, and don't think twice about it. Haaland is predicted to score almost 2 points more than any other player going into this game week. You really need to be captaining a Manchester City player. Second, we do have Kevin De Bruyne, and fourth, we do have Cancelo. Reece James does come in with a great home fixture against Wolves this week, and we saw him in the transfer targets. He having high predicted points over the next few weeks as well. But for me, it is Haaland. If you do want to go elsewhere, Kevin De Bruyne, Cancelo, or Reece James. But yeah, it is just Haaland. He is so good. 14 goals so far this season. You've heard it everywhere. You've heard it in all my content. I'm sure you've heard it in all of the other content as well. Just Captain Haaland. Look at the rest of your team to do the talking. Don't go against him because he can score hat tricks against absolutely anyone. And Southampton are definitely scared going into this week. And next up, we have your community questions. So we have my top 4 questions that I have taken from you that I'm going to answer in this video. Again, make sure you subscribe because I post the question early in the week, every single week, where you can get your questions answered. And I just take some of the comments from that post over on the community section of YouTube. So make sure you subscribe so you can get your chance to get your questions answered. But we started with VU1999 UK, who said, who is the best Mitrovic replacement and what should we be doing with Mitrovic? So personally, I think there's a good chance that Mitrovic actually plays in game week 10. Let's wait for the press conference. But even if he misses game week 10 and look at the fixtures from game week 11, including Bournemouth at home, Aston Villa at home for Fulham, I really think if there is any chance that you can keep Mitrovic, even if he misses this week, then I would absolutely go and do so. Now, if he's ruled out for a longer period of time, Vinicius Jr. at Fulham could actually be a big differential who's likely to fill in for Mitrovic if he isn't available to play because of just how good those Fulham fixtures are. And actually, he's quite an affordable price of 5.5 million. We've also spoken about Patson Daka and Callum Wilson earlier on in the video. Probably the 2 that I would go at if you don't want to go on a big pun. So Callum Wilson, if you have the money, if not, go down to Patson Daka. I'd probably move away from Dominic Solanke again, just because their attacking numbers are not good enough. I thought they'd maybe step up against Brentford, but it wasn't the case. So Daka would be my cheap option, unless you want to go really off the cuff and go with Vinicius Jr. But please wait for the press conference because I think there's a good chance that he is back fit for game week 10. Next up, Aditi, thank you so much for sending in the questions. Everyone, can we buy Manchester City and Arsenal picks despite them blanking in game week 12? So a lot of you may be looking at these couple of teams despite them not playing in the upcoming game week 12 because they are on such hot form. Personally, for me, if you really wanted to invest in Manchester City this week, then you could potentially go and do it because of their Southampton at home fixture. And Arsenal do play this week against Liverpool, but it is Leeds away next week. There is a good fixture for both of these teams, but if you have 3 of them maximum combined, then I wouldn't be going and buying in anymore. Unless you have 2 or less, then potentially consider buying. But if it's any more than that, I really think it is a weight on them. Game week 13 onwards, both the teams start having really nice run of fixtures. So look at your team, start building up transfer plans like I do. If you haven't watched my transfer plans video, again, go and check that out. But build up transfer plans about how you can go and start getting some of these guys into your team from them, and you can target them into your team from game week 10 onwards. But right now, I don't think we should be really going and buying them unless you have maybe 1 or 2 at a maximum. Next up, we have Commy T. Thank you for coming back with another question. Thoughts on picking a 1 million draft and then captaining Haaland every week. So a 1 million draft is a team that just has 1 premium in. So a premium that just has Haaland and then owning all of the likes of Zaha, Foden, Maddison, Mitrovic, Trent, Cancelo, James, all in there. I suppose I don't necessarily hate this because I do think perma captaining Erling Haaland is a reasonable strategy. In game week 11, they do play Liverpool. You might necessarily not want to captain there, but I still think it's very possible to go and do so. Then in game week 12, they do have a blank game week. Who are you going to captain there? A lot of people will be captaining Mo Salah. However, generally, perma captain on Haaland is definitely possible. And with that in mind, then the likes of Salah, then the likes of Son, Kane, De Bruyne are not necessarily worth it if you're not going to captain them every week. Don't leave money in the bank for the sake of it if you're just going to leave money that sits there and not have a premium for the sake of it. But if you are going to reinvest in the rest of your starting 11, I have absolutely nothing against doing this. And then finally, Garfield says, Liverpool continue to disappoint. Is it time to give up on them completely? So actually they did win 2-0 in the Champions League last night with a goal from Mo Salah and a goal from Trent Alexander-Arnold. What I would do to see FPL returns from the pair of them, for them to see a game where they win 2-0, where Trent scores and Salah scores, can we just return to a little bit of Liverpool normality in their Premier League? But it is true, the pair of them are not performing well. Diaz as well looks like he's not performing quite at the level. He's a little bit more affordable and looks to continue to be starting, so maybe not quite as much of a red flag. For me, I'd probably be keeping the pair of them because of the game week 12 fixture that they do have where Manchester City do blank. However, from game week 13 onwards, moving off Trent, potentially moving off Salah to the likes of De Bruyne, to the likes of Son, to the likes of Harry Kane is what I'm looking at. I just don't think Salah at 13 million is really worth it at the moment, especially if we have cheap alternative scoring. Trent potentially can stay. Again, I think those Liverpool clean sheets will come over the next couple of weeks against Arsenal and Manchester City. I definitely wouldn't be buying him. You could look to bench him as well, like I potentially am doing this week, but from game week 12, it is worth holding on to them. I do think they'll do well going forward, but it's just not gone well for them so far this season. And then the final segment of this video, it is a wildcard draft. One final reminder, if you haven't already, smash the like button. We are aiming for 1,000 likes on the video. Thank you so much for your support so far this season. It has been crazy. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. But a game week 10 wildcard draft, it lines up like this. So I have gone with 2 premiums. They are both up front. We've gone with Harry Kane and Erling Haaland. And as a result, we've got no Kevin De Bruyne. We've got no Salah in here as well. We've replaced Kevin De Bruyne with Phil Foden, who seems to be performing really well and starting for a fraction of the price. And that has allowed us to go and get Harry Kane in up front. We do have Mitrovic in here because I actually think he's going to be fine to play in game week 10. At a minimum, he'll be back game week 11 and you can just bench him this week because those Fulham fixtures from game week 11 are fantastic, and I would definitely want to own Mitrovic over any of the others. But if we do get confirmation that he's out for a while, then you could do Mitrovic to any of the forwards that we've spoken about, like Wilson, like Patson, Daka as well, or even Ivan Toney in that sort of price range. I don't fancy Martial, that I've seen a few questions in the comment section, but yeah, Mitrovic is in here despite him having a yellow flag. In the midfield, all of those are in there. I've kept Martinelli. You can bench him going into game week 12. Then we have Maddison and then we have Zaha as well. Those fixture runs for those two are the two that I really think could be big differentials for us. Maddison will be much more highly owned, but I think it is Zaha's turn next week to be a big differential. And then in defence, we do actually manage to keep Trent. Now you can look to potentially bench him this week again and next week and then start him from that game week 12 fixture run, but I do think having a little bit of Liverpool cover is definitely worth it. Then we have Cancelo for the Manchester City defence just because he's the most nailed to start out of all of them. I don't know who's going to start in defence. As we saw in game week 9, the rotation is there. Kyle Walker's picked up an injury as well, so for me Cancelo does need to be in there because of the Southampton at home fixture this week, because of the fixtures from game week 13. The clean sheets are going to roll in. Plus it looks like they've practically already qualified top of their group in the Champions League, so the Champions League rotation is likely to be a lot less than we see for other teams. Reece James in there, one of our top transfer targets, as is Perisic, as is Guehi. So 3 defenders that we spoke about in this video, all in my wildcard draft if I was going to wildcard this week. Andres Pereira, my cheap midfielder, and then we have gone with Gaeta in goal just to free up a little bit of money to be able to afford this. And Danny Ward did to keep his first clean sheet in game week 9, and it does look like he's going to keep his place as the Leicester goalkeeper, risen up to 4.1. But if you are having a second cheap goalkeeper, I would still be having Danny Ward. So this team is probably a 3-4-3 every week, but you could play a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3 depending on the fixtures that you've got, because you've got 12 strong starting players in here. So during this video, we have spoken about 6 transfer targets. We have spoken about captaincy ranking. We have answered 4 of your key questions, and then finally given you a wildcard draft. If that's not a reason to subscribe to the channel with this video coming every single game week and like the video as well, then I don't know what it is. I'm up to 20,000 in the world, plus finishing in the top 5,000 over the past 2 seasons as well. Hopefully we're on to another good finish that can help you with your overall ranks and win your mini leagues as well. Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. There are videos and live streams coming before the game week 10 deadline. Good luck in game week 10 if I don't see you before then, but as I said, I'll be back again very soon.